All right, so let's look at a pretty representative polaris-tile-fact. So first off, we look in the index. It says chip everywhere. Now, this was like pretty common for a lot of projects to not go and fix this, but that's not what it is. So it needs to be a Polaris. In this case, I believe it was tile-fact. And while generally dangerous, I can pretty confidently go and bulk replace this. And then everywhere that there's Polaris chip, it's going to have to be polaris-tile-fact, like that. And then I can glance and see there's a capital P on those, right? And let's make sure that it's capital P. And then I can also set this to be case sensitive. Okay, so I'm most of the way to refactored on the name, but these files need change. So this needs to be polaris-tile-fact. And this needs to be polaris-tile-fact, like that. And then voila, everything shows back up. So nice bulk search and replace, and we're at the name we should be using. Okay, so first of all, half decent implementation here. All right. Now, anytime we're using uppercase in this regard, we're probably not in the right neighborhood. So it's not terrible, and it works here. We've also got some interesting stuff around. This says clickable true. Let's see what button bottom does. Let's get rid of that one. Okay, so button bottom is what's throttling this showing up, which is interesting. You can make this a link without visually suggesting it's a link. So right there, it's a little strange. You also could have in this one, there's a link, but I guess say that this is not clickable or that it doesn't have a bottom tile. So now there's a link on there, but I can't actually do anything with it. So I should be able to just supply a link and those things get figured out. So I'm going to go through and we're going to get rid of button bottom and this clickable, right? Because if I'm implementing this API as someone else using this, it's a little weird. I have to set that in order to make this clickable. I should just give it a link. And if it has a link, then it should just work. Make this a little bigger window. Okay. So, all right. The other thing, this is background image. I don't care how the image is used. So I'm going to say that that's just an image. And if I go background image, nope, it's not used anywhere else. So only on those two. Now, we see if I just give it image, right? I just broke it. Also, there's additional text. Let's say this is text 2 and this is text 2. All right, we don't have a lot of that additional anymore, right? So let's get rid of it. And we see this goes to default. Okay. So also name is kind of a strange variable here. Could be like a line 1. Yeah. So my guess is this is like line 1, line 2, if we were to use it in this way. Now, I don't know that this is the best way to achieve this. I'll probably go and refactor it in a second. But all right, so there's line 1, there's line 2. Spell multi-line true. Let's see what that does. Well, I'll go and hit that up in a second, but that could be necessary as far as the design. So let's go and look in here. We'll go to our tile class, okay? And we see a background image. Immediately that has to be image. So I'm going to do background image. There's no reason for that to be named background image as far as I'm concerned, right? I don't care if it's background image. So we got our background image wired up. Now, in this, we see we have style on tile white on picture. Now, the way I would do this, and this works, but the way I do this, I would take this out and then I would just apply it to this line up here, which we're gonna have to refactor anyway. But so sometimes when I get really long selectors, right, we do something like this. So I would do style equals, oops, like that. And now immediately, if we get rid of this, right, we'll see at least this has applied correctly to those two. Now it is bricking that one. So what we need to do in that case is we should be able to do a conditional here. And I can say, if there's an image, then this is the value. Oops, it needs to be like that. Otherwise, it's nothing. There we go. Now we've met that case. So what this refactor is doing here immediately is what we can then go and apply to the link. So for example, I don't have to define an image and then say to something else, hey, you have an image. Now let's go and fix this first part, right? There's name. So I said this was like text one, or line 1, I think. That's what I went and refactored this to be. And then there's like line 2. Okay, and then we're gonna have to go up. We're going to say line 1 and line 2. And I'd probably put those near each other. And then link we'll say is null by default, and image is null by default instead of nothing. There we go. And then let's go up through CSS, close that for now. And we've got name. It's actually, whoops, that's line 1 and additional text line 2. Line 1, line 2. So we get our values, right? Because we've got that data flowing through nicely. Multi-line, let's see what multi-line does. Multi-line gets applied here, which is, this was nice, right? So you conditionally supply that. So you already have that knowledge down in this. Let's get rid of multi-line. No, it doesn't do anything there. Okay, multi-line is effectively accommodating the fact that line 2 is set. So the interesting thing here is I don't really need a Boolean for line for that. I just need to know if I have line 2 or not. And then additionally, if I look at this structure, we've got that, and we've got this class button. I could probably just do, let's see, multi-line. Line 2. So what is this dot line 2's default? It's default. And this is why I don't go and do stuff like this, right? So this would be null, meaning there's nothing. There we go. So right there, with string-based evaluation, if it's null or, well, false, you can't really set to a string, but null you can, meaning it's empty. Now, and this would work if I just set it to nothing, just so we're clear. This is where the poor typing of JavaScript is a problem, right? So if I put the string null, notice it writes it. If I put null, that is evaluative false. And so down here, what I'm saying is, if there is any value for line 2 and a string that is literally just like that, right? Or that is evaluative true because it has a value of some kind. So by having a value, then we need to bother printing 2 lines. Now there's an additional way that I could refactor this even. So I could take this chunk and we can put it in here. We've got our content. Okay. Looks like it would actually be spaced like that. Okay. So we've got our content like that. And then I can just say with this additional line and the split spacer, because that's actually the part that's different here. I could say if this dot line 2, otherwise render nothing. And what this is going to do is instead of just doing a value, like a string-based interpretation there, we're saying if we have a line 2, we got to put that HR in the page and do that other stuff. Now, I don't know what this class button thing is. We're going to at least copy that along for the time being because I'm not entirely sure what that does. And yeah, okay, so we're good on that. This line has to move in 1. There we go. All right, so we'll put that in there for now. And we should, yes, this was hoping. We get the exact same thing, right? So we've already refactored this logic so that now line 2, if line 2 exists, then we print the thing with line 2, but we also visually print this HR, which is doing the line 2 aspect to this. Now, I still don't love that, but it's better than it was. So I'm not gonna, you could get into doing slots with this in a, yeah, I don't know that I want to do multi-slot based input, but we should at least do something like this, right? Like, so some of the other elements have this. We have a slot that's wrapping line 1, and now line 1 should be, instead of default, should be null. So they all render, right? But now, because of what we have below, if I don't supply line 1 in this regard, I can put it in as text and we get the same thing. So this is more ideal, in part because if I refresh real fast and you see the actual string-based text, it's then in the page when the SEO robots come along, whether or not JavaScript is running. So that's a minor, super in the weeds sort of connotation as to why you would want to do that. But another aspect of this white on blue with all these class names is very interesting, very verbose. I don't know that I would do it this way necessarily, right? Like I would just kind of say, how would I do that? I'd probably do like colon host, and then I'd say type equals 1. So I'd give it something that wasn't so like wordy on one in one part because of the way someone would implement this. And then I would say, okay, so when we're at type 1, then this is the background color for tile. Okay, and then I'm going to break all these for a minute. I'm going to say tile is 1. All right, and that's broken. And then I should be able to do... Oh, it's type. My bad. It's not tile. It's type. Type is 1. And then I need to go up in here. And I need to say type. And type is string. And that is reflect true. Okay. Now it looks the right way. And then we come back down in here. We say this dot type equals null. Just so we have some default associated with it. Now this multi-line thing we've already refactored out, so I don't actually need multi-line in any way. I don't know that that was doing anything there. We can get rid of multi-line. And up here, yeah, it wasn't actually doing anything. So we can get rid of multi-line. So we've already simplified the API there, right? Because if we have line 2, then we know it's multi-line input. Okay. We've also added support for slot in this. And so things no longer need to supply line 1, but they can. That gives a lot more flexibility. So now I'm going to go and say, okay, navy on white is actually going to be type 2. And so now when we go in here and we look for navy on white, I'm going to do that same thing. It's going to be colon host type equals 2. And we're going to apply this to dot tile beyond our selector there. All right, so that text changed to be white. I wonder why that is. Type 2 tile. Is it because this dot tile is still here? Yeah, that'll make the other ones upset. Host type 2 dot title. All right, I'm gonna put all these together anyway. Okay, now let's inspect and see why is that applying differently. That's the value coming in. Dot tile has a color. I see. Dot tile has a color of white. So we have to get more specific than that, which is interesting because this should be more specific. Did I not? Oh, I didn't update this. Okay. So we've got line 2. We're saying it's multi-line. We don't need this multi-line anymore because we got rid of that in our API. Cool. So that still works. And then I also am enjoying refactoring these to not have line 1. Right, so line 1 can just get pasted there and it still applies correctly, which is nice. All right. So just in that instance, because we are using slot now, I need to do this slot, slotted, and then say literally anything that's in the slot, also apply this color. Now for what we're doing, this shouldn't necessarily have any impact. It probably wouldn't cause a problem, but if I said color is red, that's not, it did apply. Okay, never mind. It will at times apply correctly. So, all right, never mind that. It's going to default to whatever that is. So it's good to see. Okay, so we've got these two accommodated. Now we've got the third one is white on gradient blue. Okay. And, oh, I guess what we need to do is white on blue, right? Whenever we mess that up, right? So we need to go and, whoops, it's not white on blue. Type equals 1. There we go. And then the navy on white one, that's going to have to be type equals 2. Now, some industry partners that go and do this approach, they wouldn't name things like type 2. They'd name this like Earth. And the reason you do that is it can then be remixed at a later point in time so that you can name it whatever you want. That's part of why I'm doing this, right? This assumes this is white on picture. But if we want to change the implication of how this is leveraged, it might not be white anymore. And we don't want people to have to go around and modify this API if we're thinking of that way, code. We want it to just work at a later point in time. So white on picture is an interesting one. We'll have to deal with that one later. We got white on gradient blue. Okay, that's going to be whose type equals 3 dot tile, and then we're going to go and name gradient on blue. This will be type equals 3. You're not helping good. There we go. So we got our gradient one there. And in fact, this one down in the corner, let's do it on that one too. There we go. Nice. So we get this nice variation of displays. Some of them are dark, some of them are light in here. The very first one, right? White on navy. Well, it says white on navy. Right. So let's go find white on navy. And we'll call this one host type. There's no order necessarily to these. Like I can name them whatever I want, but the idea is that we're making it as simple as possible for someone using this to follow along with what we're building and the why we're building, right? So white on picture, I'm going to actually make that one 5. And then we're going to go in and white on picture is type equals 5. And this white on navy, this is going to be type equals 4. Oh, maybe that wasn't type equals 4. Oh, white on picture was type equals 4, I believe. Oops. What was that last one? Oh, maybe. Okay. So this one's going to be type equals 4. Type equals 4. Got some more refactor to do there, I bet. White on picture. There it is. Type equals 4 was white on picture. Oh, no. Type equals 5 was white on picture. That's 5. And this one, I believe, is 4. There. No, 5. All right. White on picture. Let's go and refactor white on picture. White on picture. Okay. So that's no longer like that. That is going to be on host type equals 5. And then it's still going to be the hover state. Okay. Oh, on the button. Oh, okay. So bottom button ends up taking up the entire asset here. So this is interesting. Yeah, this is definitely going to have to be refactored here a bit. So we're going to position that in the bottom corner. We're going to do it like that. Still, yeah, we could actually do it with that thing. All right. So in bottom button is what we're going to have to modify next here. So we got bottom button. Whoops, it's not even there. I've got button somewhere. There we go. Hover over the button if we're in type 5. So when we hover, I'm going to say it's when we hover the button because I'm going to modify the way this is structured. So when we're in type 5 and we have a button and we hover, then we're going to scale it like this. Okay. So then when we go down here, you've got this clickable. That is not going to fly. 100% not going to be how we accomplish this. Get rid of that, and we actually should be able to get rid of this now. Yeah. And then we get our button thing there. But the reason that we're not going to do clickable is that we should be able to do it like this. It should be this dot link. Right? So if we have a link, then let's just make the href go to the link instead of all of this convoluted funny business above. Right? So if we have a link, then we render a link. Otherwise, we don't. And now when we hover it, we get that, but we also can click and go to the link. Now, another aspect of this, another aspect, right? It's a link now, so I can click that to get more details. I can still highlight the whole stinking thing, but I could click and go there, which is great. All right, there's some, I don't know if this thing is like color or I'm not sure why this is the color that it is. Icon duck. I don't know what icon duck is. Well, this is not the correct icon, unfortunately. But let's see. Let's just CSS color shift. Color shift an image. Change color of PNG image via CSS. It's probably going to be a transform property. Just guessing. Filter contrast, something like that. Not the ideal solution here, but I'm not going to go implement the absolute correct way to do that tile at the moment. So this is going to be like brightness, I don't know, 4. There we go. And so we're just upping the brightness on that to some absurd value effectively. So then you can see it and it does a nice little scale. Now it does need something to suggest it's going to go there. And so we can put text in that, right? And you see the text, which is unfortunate. Or we could give it a title. And title allows a screen reader to understand what it is. And so that's how you get that little thing with the tooltip, like check out undergraduate admission stats, and then you click it and then you go there. So that is a more accessible way of achieving that. And we blow up this code, right? We don't need to add a click event and jump to it. We don't need in our API someone to understand what clickable means. That shouldn't have to be a thing. All right, and then we got white on navy. White on navy. Oops, blew up white on navy already. So white on navy is going to be type equals probably 1. There we go. What if we did 2? What if we did 3? Or 4? What if we did 3? There we go. All right, and so this is the idea here, that we can go and switch this around. Type 5. That's valid even there, right? Now, another thing we should do is if I put in type 7, let's say I leverage the API incorrectly, I should have a fallback for that. And so the easiest way to do a fallback for that is like this. We just say, okay, let's pick this one and say that's the default. So we're going to say this. So, whoops. This says, if there's a type of any kind, go and apply this. Now I'm going to do it to just the first one. We're not going to do it to that one. There we go. So now if you've screwed up and accidentally set this, you still are going to get a valid value here, right? So even if I do type whatever, right, we still get at least that one. And it looks half decent, but I could go back to type 1 and we get type 1. Right, so we've got our icon. It jumps to it. I think we lost our background gradient at some points. Let me see how that was achieved. We have image. We've got the ability to link things now. When demonstrating this, by the way, I also would go and then apply a link to something that doesn't have the image, just so that we have, just so that we're clear as to what that should look like. And the reason I do that is because right now there's an accessibility issue with this, right? There's a link on this. You have no idea it's there. Right. And then that would tell me in making this, right, that I need to then go in and we need to say that this is not necessarily accurate, right? So that host with the button is relative to the types that I apply, right? And so that can be enough to help me know, all right, well, if I apply it there, all right, it looks good there. It looks good here. It doesn't look so good there, right? So then I can start to add the other types in that need that there for accessibility. All right, so I could say it's probably type 1, type 3, and type 4, type 6, type 2. All right, I can look at this and be like, what the heck is going on with you, man? All right, and then dig in and see, oh, that still says tile 5, so I would type 5. There we go. There's the actual solution, right? So I was able to figure out that I have this API wrong, so that I can switch that to 5, right? And then I know in here, okay, I've got 5 accommodated already, and I've got 1 accommodated. Take those out, and now it looks right on that one, right? So by adding a link into all of these, and of course, another way I could do this in the short term is I go into our tile fact. This is a good way to use defaults. Right? I go in and I say, hey, the link is this. And then at a glance, I go, oh, there's an accessibility issue here. Jump to it. Okay, that's type 3. So that means type 3 also is going to need to be accommodated in this. Okay. 1, 3, and 5. There we go. So now it shows up with the correct contrast ratio on all these different ones. Okay. And then we've also got line 1, right? And that should probably now be that this is null. But this one doesn't have a line 1. Has a weird, right? Like because of the way that that's implemented. So this should be like line 1 or, right? So it should be, if there's a line 1, this is this dot line 1. Otherwise, it could be some text like click for additional details, right? At least something. It doesn't need to be click, right? Additional details about this fact, something like that, right? So now we've got fallback text in the event that we don't have the initial thing there, right? This is additional details, but this one's going to say check out undergraduate admission stats, right? Because of the way that that's leveraged. So we've got split line there accommodated. We've got these different cases. It's applying that correctly. Just as some last things that I'd probably do here. Additional text. That's fine. Content. Split spacer, right? This has a very hard-coded size. This is one of the few designs that probably would. Also, if you got Roboto, that has to be in quotes. You can't just say Roboto. So it's not going to be on the system. I wouldn't do the icon this way, but we haven't gotten into leveraging other icons. I have an icon that does that. We can get rid of clickable. We can get rid of bottom. That's great. We can get rid of tile. Here we go. And it all still works. All right. And then I would take like type is the most important. We put it up there. Line 1, line 2, image, link. I try to align these in the appropriate order. Take this and move my constructor first so that as some other human would read this, they go, oh, that's what the constructor is. Then we know what these defaults are. We're not reflecting any of the other ones. Image, very clear. That could also be source, but image is probably more appropriate here. Line 1, line 2 of input is accommodated. We're supporting an image if it exists. Otherwise, we're not. That's great. We've got dot tile here, which expresses what the purpose is. And then we've had fallback, but also been flexible about the different types. We've got defaults for our types. We've also got variations on the button for accessibility. We've got that this transforms and scales up just like the other. No, it doesn't. So we have to do it like that. There we go. So now it scales up. Another thing we should probably do, this has this flash of like unstyled content, meaning there's nothing here. And so the easiest way to at least initially accommodate that would be to make the thing we're looking at hit these initial map values. So what you can do is I can say polaris-tile-fact not colon defined. And I can throw those values in. And what you end up getting is you don't see this bounce much. It's at least, somewhat in alignment there. And then I can go in and I can say, it's probably display flex with this in the center, right? Like I can effectively style the default so that it sort of looks right. Yeah, you can't even, right? You can see it flash at real light. So that it sort of is correct. And I'd say color is that, and then background color is, we'll just say navy for simplicity here, right? So that you at least get a placeholder. And you probably wouldn't even do red. You probably do like gray, to be honest. There we go. So that then when you get a slow load, you still get something that is visually the intention of what's about to be there. So great work. Some cleanup to make it production for sure.